Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to this video. 4K gaming, it is literally the talk of the town. But it also requires substantial investment because you need loads of different kit to actually get gaming in 4K. So, is the investment worth it? What's it actually like to game in 4K, and is it worth getting hold of? Before we get started, you can click here to learn more about 4K and what resolution actually is. And if you're wondering what's on in the background, that is a Samsung 48-inch 4K HU7500. That's quite a long model name to remember, and it is of course running Valley Benchmark, and you can download the link, find the link to the download in the description below. So 4K gaming, you're going to need a lot of kit to actually get started, but what is this kit? Well, obviously you're going to need a 4K display. That can either be a 4K TV like we've got here, or it can be a 4K monitor. Now a 4K monitor is going to need to have a refresh rate of 60 Hz. Some of them, and definitely more so the cheaper ones, will say that they're 4K, but they only have a maximum refresh rate in 4K mode at 30 Hz. And 30 Hz is not enough to be gaming for the majority of games, but especially desktop use, you're going to need one that's 60 Hz. If you buy one at 30 Hz, you are in for disappointment. Outside of that, you are going to need to have 4K capable graphics cards. Now, the latest Nvidia series have HDMI 2.0 ports, which means that you can use them with the latest 4K TVs at 60 Hz. But most stuff will just use DisplayPort if you're getting a monitor. And of course the monitor is going to be what most of us are going to be buying for their gaming PCs. So you can go out today and you can buy 4K capable kit. However, if you do that, you are going to run into some initial problems. If you've gone the route that most of us will go down and get a 4K monitor, then the issue with doing that is we run into a scaling problem. Now Windows, or of course Macintosh if you're using that, or Linux or whatever you're using, all the icons are suddenly going to become 4 times smaller because the resolution is 4 times higher. To get around this problem, we want to use something called scaling, which is just bringing the desktop and growing it so that although the stuff is the same size as what you had before, the resolution is much higher and everything looks pin sharp. So the problem is some apps don't scale properly, and that means you get either tiny little icons, blurry sort of text and different things like that, where things just aren't scaling properly. So that's the main issue you're going to run into if you're on a 4K monitor. If you're on a 4K TV and you've gone down the route that I've gone down of, then there are still quite a few teething issues at the moment, where although both the graphics card that I've got and the TV I've got are HDMI 2.0 compatible, if you delve, is that the right word? Maybe, a little bit deeper, then you'll find that HDMI 2.0 allows for more bandwidth, and then this bandwidth should allow full colour 4K at 60 Hz. But for some reason at the moment this television just won't accept the signal, and plenty of other people are reporting similar issues. So the lesson here is to make sure you do plenty of research in the Nvidia forums. At the moment that's the best place. Hopefully this issue will be fixed, but at the moment I can only get a 30 Hz signal. But regardless of whether you're running a 4K monitor or 4K TV, you are going to run into an even bigger issue. And that issue is of course 4K output. Now, just because you've got a graphics card that can output 4K to your display doesn't mean it's going to be able to play all your games at 4K. Now, Crysis is definitely the worst thing to play at the moment, in the sense that it's so demanding that your frames are going to tank and you are going to take down some of the settings. If you want to run Crysis at max settings, then if you have 2 cards in SLI, so 2 GTX 980s, you're only going to get an average of about 30 frames a second. Now, if you want to play all your games at max settings, then you're going to need something like 4 Titans or 4 of these 980 cards or something ridiculous. Pretty much it's a case of you won't be able to run every single game in 4K at max settings. No, it doesn't really matter what your budget is, unfortunately. You'll be able to run most games at decent frame rates if you have the right amount of equipment, but we are very much getting into silly money, and that's of course not even including the silly money that we currently need to pay for the monitor or TV in the first place. But enough of all the problems. What is the 4K gaming experience like? Well, like I say, this is a 4K TV, but I've had the pleasure of using 4K monitors in the past as well. I've used different variety of models, particularly the G-Sync one actually. That was one of the most impressive ones, the Acer ones, but let me just say that the 4K experience, if you boot up Crysis, turn the settings down to high, it is capped at 30 frames a second, but it's literally the most immersive experience I think I've ever had. Image quality is just pin sharp. And because Crysis has such a quality amount of graphical fidelity in the first place, that is definitely the word I'm looking for, it just means that everything pops and it looks pretty real. We all know that Crisis Grass looks amazing, but in 4K, everything on screen, it doesn't matter whether it's right in the distance or right up close, it looks absolutely fantastic, and I am having a great time working through Crisis with a controller at 30 frames a second, and that's something I didn't think I would be saying. Despite that, there are plenty of other games, of course, that will run 4K absolutely fine. Some of the older games, the textures will look a bit naff up close, but I was playing a little bit of Tomb Raider Underworld, Tomb Raider Anniversary, and even that looked absolutely cracking. I will definitely say that the 4K experience I thought was a lot better on a large TV like this one. When you're playing on a 4K monitor, because it's a bit smaller, although you're closer to it, you can see loads of detail. But because the pixels are so small, you do kind of miss a little bit, and that lack of immersion is just something that I think is better on the television. And for that reason, if I was going to have to choose whether to play in 4K on a TV or a monitor, I would actually go with the TV, as I think if you sit right up close to your TV, and of course all that detail's there, I think it looks absolutely incredible. So what have I learned from my 4K experience, and what can I share with you? Well, the first thing about 4K that I really should note is that the bigger the screen, the more immersive it is. Likewise, the closer you are to that screen, the more immersive it is. One of the problems with big 1080p gaming on a big TV was the fact that if you did sit quite close, you could see all the pixels and things just started to look a bit rubbish. But with 4K, you can effectively sit twice as close without sort of spoiling the detail, and it does look pretty incredible. A monitor looks absolutely incredible in 4K, don't get me wrong. Of course, it's even sharper because it's a smaller screen, but the experience just wasn't quite the same. Yes, it was brilliant, it was really sharp, I could see an incredible amount of detail, but I definitely wouldn't say that it's worth the cost of all that graphical horsepower and of course the cost for the display. One thing I would say is that the ROG Swift that I did actually order for myself, then cancel, then I've gone and actually seen it in action, that is actually one of the most impressive things I've seen recently for gaming, just because to play at that higher frame rate, which is of course 144 frames a second, on that really sharp 1440p display, I would actually say that is equally as impressive as this big 4K experience. And of course it does depend on the game, but if you are going to be using a mouse and keyboard, you're going to need you're definitely going to need a high frame rate, which is where I think the ROG Swift is quite a good choice. So to sum it up really nice and cleanly, I would say this. 4K, yes, it is pretty awesome, but the expense to actually get in the door just simply at the moment isn't worth it. And especially if you are the PC side, you've got to put up with these 4K TN panels, so it isn't actually going to look as nice as like one of these nice 1440p IPS panels from a colour perspective. And of course an image is just a mixture of resolution and colour, and of course frame rate. So there are many things to choose from, but at the moment I don't think the taxation on the graphics card is actually worth what you get on screen on a 4K monitor. On a 4K TV, actually it looks pretty impressive and I'm very happy with what I've done, but I still wouldn't say it's something you have to rush out and get, because it's a lot of money and it costs a lot of GPU horsepower. And that pretty much comes to the end of this video. I hope it hasn't really turned into too much of a rant, but those are pretty much what I've learned so far from having the 4K experience. It's brilliant, but it's pretty much way too expensive for what it's worth. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hit the like button if you've liked this video, hit the dislike button if you didn't like it. Once again, this is the Valley benchmark in the background below, and well, you probably can't see because it's a 1080p video, but trust me, it looks absolutely fabulous. Subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this, as well as others on PCs, gaming and technology. Got quite a lot of kit in for review. There'll be a full review of this television as well coming on the channel very soon, as well as I've got some nice RoCat stuff in. I've got a mouse and a headset, so that is all coming nice and soon. So thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a comment if you've liked this video, hit a like, hit a dislike, depending on whether you like the video or not, and I will see you in the next one.